make, but they've got one more game standing between them and making that one. To start things off, they're going to ban Aurelion Sol first and foremost, just like they did in game number 1. Game number 2, remember, they allowed it to go for the first 3 picks, banned it in the second phase. Not willing to risk that here in the deciding game.
Yeah, and in game 1, they banned the Aurelion Sol, the Gragas, and the Varus. And like I had said, I was surprised they didn't ban the Kennen, because it got picked up by Darshan, and it was so effective. And now Phoenix1 can ban away the Gragas or the Varus, take either the Caitlyn for themselves, or pick up the Lee Sin. And we'll see what ends up happening here, because the Zac and Galio taken away from Counterlogic Gaming.
Yep, Zac and Galio denied. The Kennen, like you mentioned, it is banned away again by Phoenix1 going into this series. Had an 85% ban rate by this team. We saw why after what happened in game number 1 compared to the outcome of game number 2. One more ban from P1 will be the Caitlyn. Why?
Okay, so I feel like they're pinching it so that the Lee Sin is what they get the first pick here. The Shen ban comes through. I feel like this is an insta-lock Lee Sin situation for them.
You would think so. Both players like the champion. Both players are good at the champion. We saw Dardoch's performance on Lee Sin in game number 1, 3-0 and 13, I believe.
Yeah.
So, would be surprised to see something other than the Lee Sin, but Phoenix1 is thinking about Ashe.
Yeah, Ashe or Varus, but then you're trading one over for the other, but just go Lee Sin, yeah.
Makes a lot of sense to pick up the Lee Sin here, because you know if you leave it up, your opponents are going to take it.
Exactly.
You're not going to have a second chance at that pick.
Yeah, and you already felt the wrath of Dardoch's Lee Sin, and now Mike Young is going to say, you know what, Dardoch, you're getting a little old. You aren't 17 anymore.
Yeah.
There's a new Lee Sin prodigy.
There's a new age. A new age has dawned. Let me show you the wrath of the Lee Sin one trick. Remember, those were the words Dardoch used to describe Mike Young. So if somebody thinks you're good at one champion, maybe you should show them how good you really are at that one champion. CLG, though, they'll pick up the Gragas again, and they're grabbing themselves the Varus there for Stixxay.
Yeah, Varus for Stixxay, which leaves Ashe to be picked up, but then the Renekton, that's interesting, because the Gragas is a flex pick. It could be Dardoch, it could be Darshan, and we've seen CLG flex in between those two very consistently.
You've always got to keep guessing. That's actually one of the big things about the current pick and ban system that has come into play over the course of this 2017 season, is you can make people guess and potentially bait out completely useless bans in the second ban phase if you manage to get them to guess wrong. The other pick for Phoenix1 locked in, the Tahm Kench for Xpecial, yet again.
Yeah, this could be the workings of a Kog'Maw for Arrow, who loves to play that champion. But Counterlogic Gaming, it's interesting. They could go for, I'm feeling like this may be something like an Orianna plus a Jarvan type composition, or a split push, and there they go. Yeah,
right.
They have the disengage from the Gragas, so you had so much flexibility here. He's gonna take the Fiora, and now Darshan pretty much has the game in his hands.
Fiora is one of those champions that you know just has so much ability to carry the game, the pressure that you can put down with a split push, the inevitability factor that the champion presents as well. You know if you allow Fiora to hit 4, 5, 6 items, she becomes this unstoppable duelist that you just need to win before that point happens. So CLG will be able to put that timer on Phoenix1 this game. Bans in phase 2 coming through. Ashe, ban number 1 by CLG, because they did lock in their AD carry. Their opponents did not. So that means you can pinch that pool.
Yeah, you pinch it down even further, put him on something like Jhin maybe. Get him on a less effective AD carry at the moment. Xayah's still up though, so would have a lot of safety with that champion. I feel like they want forward pushing. They want something that could engage with this composition that they have, because the Tahm Kench is disengaged, so Phoenix1 could be going for a Cassio, could be looking for something along the lines of, you know, a late game composition that's a 4-1, but you aren't going to win that one unless you give some attention to that top lane. And that Kog'Maw, like the ban, because you can kind of sniff that out with the Tahm Kench, and Arrow really favoring that champion.
You called it earlier. You said that might be the composition they're building. CLG thought the same thing, making sure Arrow doesn't get to play that this time around. Morgana banned away by P1. Aphromoo had success on that in game number 1 as well. His black shields honestly really impressed me too, because they were always on the person they needed to be on. They made it so when he went in, he was never under threat of being caught out or shut down. They made it so the couple of times Stixxay needed one, he was right there protected for. The CC was blocked. So I'm not surprised to see them keep that off the table. Kassadin also banned out.
Another ban towards Huhi.
That also means, though, P1 might be thinking about that Taliyah for Ryu. People like to pick Kassadin into Taliyah. Maybe you ban it out.
That they forgot about this, the LeBlanc. Huhi's LeBlanc, as well as Ryu also plays a really mean LeBlanc. And the Kassadin ban means you don't have that champion that plays pretty well into the LeBlanc in the late game for the split push on the side lane. So 1-3-1 composition from Counter Logic Gaming, and I have to take this back because the first times I had saw Huhi was back in, I believe, 2014, where he was playing on Team Fusion, and he was playing things like Zed, playing things like LeBlanc, and he was always split pushing. This is before mid laners even took teleport, and he was very good at that style, and it hasn't left him.
The Taliyah does come through for Ryu, the champion that yesterday he got the pentakill with. We're gonna see him look to have that same sort of an impact here today. Twitch locked in for Arrow, some hyper carry potential there. But you gotta remember, Twitch is awesome because he has the ability to attack all 5 people in a team fight, but CLG isn't looking, like you said, to fight you in a 5-man team fight.
And even if he does, Braum. They counter it with the Braum as their last pick here from Counter Logic Gaming side. The spray and pray comes up, the shield comes up, and you aren't hitting the people behind Braum.
Makes life a little bit difficult for Ol Arrow. Now looking at this Taliyah, we bring up the pentakill, we bring up Ryu's awesome game 2 from yesterday, but at the same time, I don't want to build any false expectations. We have to remember what happened in game number 3 in Phoenix1 versus Dignitas, because although Ryu had such a performance in game 2, game number 3 was a very different story. He played the same champion to much less convincing results, and Phoenix1 couldn't find the win. So are we going to see the game 2 Ryu Taliyah or the game 3 Ryu Taliyah?
Well, it's game 3 right now between these teams. This is the decider. If Phoenix1 can get their first win of the split, and then we would have no teams without a win. Or is Counter Logic Gaming going to stay on top and make sure that come Friday, they have that Immortals matchup where they're both 5-1 fighting for first?
Honestly, at the end of this week, we could have 3 teams tied at that 5-1 record for first, but CLG, to be one of them, does have to take down P1 one more time here. On to Summoner's Rift for the 3rd time. The gates go down, the players run out. We haven't seen anything really sketchy at level 1 so far between these two in the couple previous games, but you never know what might happen in game number 3.
Yeah, only thing is Afromu running straight down. You also have, this is actually a bad 5-point from CLG, so this is going to be slightly aggressive here. They have 3 strong on bot, only 1 on top, so there's a hole in their 5-point defense on the top side of the map. So they're seeding Raptors, but they would see it to kind of set up here. Afromu tagged him.
Arrow was spamming some animations, and Dardoch actually goes for flash against Arrow. Arrow just wanted to have some fun, spam some dances, and do that general level 1 tomfoolery, but CLG was having none of it.
Oh, Ryu walking up on Afromu. Afromu, though, with the Q.
Winter's Bite connects. Ryu will continue to take some damage here. Still have time to be able to get himself back.
He has to back further, yeah, to make sure the LeBlanc can't hit him and interrupt it at all. But yeah, for Counter Logic Gaming, trading Dardoch's flash for Arrow's flash, typically you would say much better for the side of Counter Logic Gaming because of the fact that they have the laners still have flash. But Mike Young, the Lee Sin one trick, the 71% win rate in solo queue, 150 games, and the performance he had yesterday on the 2 Lee Sin games he got, it may be a possibility that he does what he did yesterday and invades on Dardoch, checks his route. We have to keep tabs on that and see how aggressive Mike is in this 3rd game.
Mike starting at his own red buff, waiting for the poison to wear off so it doesn't accidentally tick and steal it away. We've all been there at some point in our lives. Mike Young wants to make sure that point in his life isn't the deciding game against CLG, potentially for Phoenix1's first win of the split. But remember, the flash down on Arrow, you're up against somebody like Braum. Braum, we talk about him being one of those champions who can sometimes be bullied around in the 2v2 because of his lack of range, but once his jungler shows up, his gank assistance is incredible, and if they can catch Arrow out, it's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, but it's not as big as in other matchups because he has the Tahm Kench. The Tahm Kench flash is basically your flash as well as an AD carry. So X Special would be able to eat him, flash away, and kind of give him that distance instead of having to use the flash of the AD carry himself. So it's not as huge as it would normally be.
Zig versus Darshan. Early on, Darshan will be pushed around a bit here by that Renekton. Fiora does take a little bit longer than Renekton does to get going, but once she does, of course, like we mentioned, that 30-35 minute mark into the game, when Fiora's up and running, that's the scary part.
And they're tracking Dardoch right here. Since they haven't seen Mike Young or any of his route, Mike Young is clearing the whole bottom side, but because Ryu dipped out of mid, put a ward at the red buff, they see Dardoch, and Dardoch pulls it all the way to the side, so he's not in range of if the Lee Sin were there on the top side. So he's playing around with the fact that his flash is down.
Stixay and Afromu controlling the bottom lane for now, keeping that shoved up. Huhi versus Ryu in mid. 2 guys to keep your eyes on. Remember, Huhi getting player of the game, game 1 here today. Ryu having almost a player of the game performance in game number 2, falling a little bit behind Mike Young there.
And Huhi himself in game 2, the Lucian was such a treat to watch.
So cool to see.
Yeah, he did 34.8% of his team's damage. He did an immense amount of their damage. It was incredibly aggressive. Had a lot of deaths because he was playing so far forward. We think about the solo kill as well. It's quite big.
Not quite getting the chain there to make sure that he won the trade super handedly. Huhi, as this game goes on, remember, you're looking at that LeBlanc split push potential that you talked about. Huhi, a player that was always good at that style, somebody you could always count on to make that happen. And I really enjoy watching these asymmetrical type of games where one team wants to have a 5v5 type fight, the other team wants to run the split push, because it comes down to making the other guys play your game and seeing who really has mastery over the game better. Huhi now looking to make the plays onto Ryu, who tries to flash away. Dardoch coming in. Huhi gonna be jumped on. Mike Young looking to turn this one around if he can, and first blood goes to Ryu.
That combo, Mike with the flash shield, but he missed the Q follow-up. Darshan, though, trying to pair up with Dardoch, but Dardoch doesn't have that body slam flash, remember.
The Dardar Binks combo trying to close in on Ryu here, see if they can get that revenge kill. Dardoch's got to watch out. Darshan flashing over the wall, looking to take this guy down if he can. A little bit more damage will do it, and he smacks him with the water noodle.
Yep. Darshan actually suffers a whole bunch in terms of his CS numbers in lane, but he gives up his lane to help his team. He's the #1 top laner in kills and assists, but it's because he roams. And that Q right there, ooh, yeah, he just kind of changed the order there. I think he wanted to flash first and then Q, but instead went for the Q and the flash, was trying to style on him a little bit.
Didn't quite work out, and it ultimately turns that into a 1-for-1. But you know, one thing that also could have had an impact on that fight was if Dardoch had flash. Yep, to get in there a little bit faster. He did not. That was the cost of that level 1 flash trade that we saw between himself and Arrow. And even though it didn't play out like you potentially suggested with Mike Young invading, when the two find themselves in the same fight and one has flash, the other doesn't, that can make the difference.
And look at this special. Because range supports are out, the melee and versus range support matchup where you can't freeze the wave as a melee support because the range one just comes up and harasses you out, those days are gone in these matchups. So, freezes the wave for Arrow. Arrow will be no worse for wear in this bottom side. Gets his tier 2 boots to avoid arrows from the Varus and also the Braum Qs. So, I like the purchase there of the tier 2 boots.
With Darshan's Fiora now having a kill under his belt, his farm is very close to what Zig has. He's comfortable sitting where he's at right now in this lane. Yeah, you're a little bit of farm down, but if Renekton's not up in farm, something's gone real wrong.
Yeah, and he's actually up in terms of overall gold and experience. So Darshan has that level 6. Zig has to be careful, and this is kind of one of those things I was talking about in Champion Select where Zig hasn't played a game of Fiora competitively from what I've seen in his career stats. And I feel like Counter Logic Gaming, once again, kind of sniffed that out and said, all right, we don't play it into Galio, then we'll be able to take it. Dardoch, though, does have flash this time. Mike Young.
Dardoch a bit close here. Flashes away, but Mike Young chases after him with the resonating strike. Now CLG has found their way into this fight. Ryu popping the cleanse, getting himself away. Grand challenge has been issued. 4 vitals are there, and Darshan wants to chase him down. Heal is going to be procced, meaning the fight is not going to be turning anywhere else towards them anytime soon. Darshan, Huhi, and Dardoch all get themselves out. Good setup from CLG.
Yeah, Zig was in an awful position there on top side. He couldn't walk through where Darshan was because he's ahead and had level 6. And then Darshan gets the inside track as the Fiora, which typically shouldn't happen. The Renekton should be shoving him in. So that matchup kind of went awry, and you can see he shoved it to turret, and then they call him down as soon as they start engaging on him. The wall comes out, and Darshan cancels his back to rush there, whereas Zig was busy with minions the whole time.
Ryu and Mike Young then have to retreat, and the chains make sure that's not going to be a fun time.
Was a good cleanse there from Ryu to avoid the second chain from Huhi, but then Darshan already has enough damage, and like I said in Champion Select, as soon as the Fiora was locked into the Renekton, I was like, all right, this is Darshan having the chance to carry this game for his team.
And let's go back to that Champion Select because we talked about the timer too. How Fiora being in the game makes it so you're pressured to have early successes, to have good teamwork, and make it so you put her in a spot where she can't play her game by the time 35 minutes hits. And right now, Darshan is nowhere close to that spot.
Yeah.
It's a great opener for him.
A fantastic opener. And I feel like we talk about scaling, and we'll look at both comps for a second here. Top lane for CLG scales better with the Fiora. Their mid lane scales better a little bit with the LeBlanc being able to teleport and side lane push, etc. But the bottom lane, Arrow scales better, right? And he has the Taunt Kench. But it's not as important because they have an answer for it with the Braum shield. So Arrow, in order to kind of use his scaling, has to be even more clever in his approaches to these fights. He has to deal with the damage and the CC that's coming through from multiple members, and then he also has to deal with the fact that his damage can be blocked.
But that's one of the cool things about Twitch, right? You do have that creative avenue to really win the game through unorthodox means by getting the proper flank, by getting the drop on somebody and being in the right place at the right time that your opponents just don't expect. If it's somehow creeping through a ward line or just barely ducking out a fog of war to get the Invisi, there's a lot of stuff that you can do.
Yeah, and you can't really prepare for playing Twitch unless you play Twitch, right? He's such a unique champion in terms of the AD carry role, where he helps gank mid and do all these creative things. So we do know that he's put a ton of time onto this champion, and they've even run compositions revolving around him in the past with things like the Ivern, etc.
Darshan back in top lane. Ninja tabbies completed on him just to make sure that Zig will not be able to shut down his farm pattern early on, although Zig does have a nice CS advantage here early. The LeBlanc clone makes its way towards top side, just trying to scare him away a little bit. Zig's not even afraid.
Yeah, well, 100% fake. They see Huhi in the mid lane.
Yeah, there's no need to be afraid when you could see the other guy like, huh, I wonder if this one's fake. Maybe he roamed up here and left the clone middle.
Yeah, remember when I talked about ganking mid as Twitch?
Yep.
Pretty sure that's about to happen literally right now.
Yeah, looks like you're seeing the Twitch hanging out there on top of the control ward. Huhi gonna be just fine, actually.
And that's one of the problems with having the LeBlanc be there as the Twitch. Because, like, if there's these low mobility mids, you're fine. Oh, Zig.
Gonna be interrupted there. Grand challenge issued. Darshan going underneath the turret, but you gotta be careful about chasing that one too far. Remember, Riposte does not block turret shots. Blocks anything else, but not damage from structures.
And now it's time to rush to the top side of the map.
Everybody trying to get to the party in time.
Is Ryu gonna wall this? What's gonna happen?
They want to, but at the same time, the minion wave is dying rapidly enough that he doesn't have to. Zig wants to get back. He has some shopping to do.
Yeah.
94 CS, 1,900 gold in pocket.
Has the teleport. The TP from Darshan's actually going to the bottom side of the map as Arrow is backing now. So what ended up happening here is Arrow gets solo experience and also gold.
Ooh, that was close. Darshan really wanted to think about going for Arrow there, who had no mana. Would have certainly been a summoner spell force if he would have got in range, but Arrow gets himself back in time.
Yeah, and from CLG, the reason they made that rotation is their top turret was below half HP or about half HP. So they wanted to kind of have that turret survive a little bit longer by disrupting the Fiora versus Renekton matchup early and making sure that, you know, Zig doesn't have a good back, etc. So I like the play there from Counterlogic Gaming to kind of switch it up and get out of these matchups.
Stixay now topside farming up 99 CS. He'll tick 100 in just a moment. There you go. Blade of the Ruined King being built by both of these 80 carries here at the start. Very effective on both of them. 17,000 to 17,000 gold. Exactly what you'd expect in a game number 3. This is what we saw yesterday from Phoenix1 as well against Dignitas. The game number 3 was the closest one and the slowest one, as both teams were really giving respect to each other and recognizing the fact that it could go either way. Seems to be happening the same way here against CLG.
Yeah, and there's so many wards in this game already. Another bad Vital, so Darshan will win that one.
Darshan not really even concerned about this minion wave that he's running into because of the Vital spawning. Knew he was able to win that trade.
And for Counterlogic Gaming, this may be an even more clever draft than we had initially thought. Look at this, trying to flank. There's the wall.
Uh-oh, Stixay definitely going to be forced to flash out as Aphromoo is stuck. Can't get the jump over to Stixay and gets brought down.
And that might be Rift Herald here. Very quick pickup on that. The top turret, Arrow's going to go there. This is a maximization, I believe, if they actually want to go for it. All right, I guess they're not going to push top at the same time.
Dardoch walking his way over. Xpecial to be zoning him out.
Looking for something. Dardoch could get stunned here.
CLG just wants to waste their time. Stop them from getting this objective if they can. Dardoch getting away over the wall. Exhaust onto Huhi. Zig coming around from behind. Huhi taking low.
Poison.
Should tick a little bit further.
That's it.
7 HP.
Gets away just barely, but they stop the Rift Herald for now. And that looked like exactly what P1 were trying to go for, except with a little more kills on the back end. They wanted that top turret as well as this Rift Herald, but they said, no, we want the fight instead of the top turret. And they pivot their TP from Darshan. Oh,
Remember,
from Huhi. It's from Huhi.
There are limited resources here for Phoenix1. They're still looking to take the Herald down if they can. They do successfully grab it. No one's able to pick it up, though. Mike Young forced to flash back. Afro Moose still zoning them away from this.
Nobody got it. Yeah, you're
that
right.
Rift Herald sits on the ground for 40 seconds. You leave it there for that long, it then disappears.
Dardoch is guarding it. Ryu's kind of looking for something. And it's not even like a gigantic or a small radius. You can get pretty close to that thing, or pretty far away from that thing, and you'll pick it up. But they're just going to guard it.
Keeping it safe for now.
A few more seconds.
Ryu
They
wants
see him.
to
They
think
see him.
about going for it.
They see him, though.
I was thinking about this yesterday, actually, is when we would see a team in pro play get the Rift Herald but fail to pick up the item, and the other team successfully keep them away from it.
There it is.
There you see it, CLG. They surrender the Rift Herald itself to Phoenix1, but they keep the effect of it from going over.
It means absolutely nothing at that point. They got a Rift Herald, never got to use it, pick it up, nothing.
Congrats, you killed an extra minion.
Yep.
Somebody got 1 extra CS.
And not able to pick it up on the way out. They were so pressured from Huhi. And that's kind of a mistake because not everybody was as pressured there. There was maybe somebody who could have picked it up and then gotten out, but still.
LeBlanc wave clear is so satisfying to watch, too. The way the thing just bounces around and clears them all out. Such a good feeling. Satisfying.
I would use infuriating.
No, I mean, if you are the LeBlanc, come on, man. We're not talking about playing against it. I mean, as that player experience.
Yeah. Oh, okay, yeah, focus on that. The LeBlanc wave clear is actually fantastic. I love when the Rise has 2 E's set up on things and he kills one and it just double bounces.
Oh, they just bounce all over the place? Yeah, that was fantastic, too.
Special look for the stun.
Afro move gobbled up. Stick stays there to keep him safe, though. Might still look to make this 2v2 happen, but it's not quite a 2v2 as Ryu makes his way into the fight. Spray and pray out onto Afro Moo, who's barely walking away for now. He's not going to be getting away too much longer, though. Arrow grabbing the kill. P1 up 3-2 now as CLG can't respond in time.
Yeah, Ryu had a wall that was just barely enough to cut off Dardoch. Dardoch would have used the body slam to get over, and then he doesn't have flash to actually make anything happen. So couldn't get into that fight because of the Talia.
Meanwhile, bottom side, Darshan and Zig eternally locked in 1v1 combat.
Yeah, and like I was saying, this is a matchup that CLG really wanted, and this draft may be a little more clever from Counterlogic Gaming than we had initially thought, because P1 just stylistically don't like to play to the top lane, right? They don't play to Zig almost ever, and that's what Stixay was saying in his little thing before we came here into the game. Was he was saying, oh, they play to the bottom side more than anything, right? You just have to focus on that. Yeah, and that's exactly kind of how things have been going, a little bit more towards that mid lane.
Afro move gets picked off here. No real way out of that one, but yeah, when you know your opponents play a style that throws their top laner under the bus, you pick a top lane champion that makes for an excellent bus driver like Fiora, and all of a sudden, you're in a sweet spot to make sure you can scale up and be in that dominant position 30, 35 minutes into the game where you've scaled to the point where the enemy team says, wait a second, that's a 4-item Fiora, how do we address this?
Yeah. And it becomes pretty much unstoppable at that point. But if Arrow can get those kills, get online as Twitch, then Phoenix1 have a great way to win this game. Whereas Counterlogic Gaming, that 1-3-1 with the Gunblade now coming online for Huhi, that could start being how they get in.
You've got the regeneration on the Gunblade for Huhi. You've got the regeneration on the Ravenous Hydra for Darshan. So both these guys have their sustain tools now to keep them in those lanes as long as humanly possible. You've pretty much got to send extra bodies to deal with one of them.
Yeah. And right now it's going to be that struggle for first brick, first turret. Still hasn't dropped yet. A top turret below half HP. And that's the one that's primed right now.
But the fact that it hasn't dropped yet is saying something for Phoenix1 as well, because they have over a 1,000 gold lead, even though they're only up 1 kill, which demonstrates their farm advantage. Just in general, their gold advantage without needing the turrets. The root and the damage onto Ryu, who he taking some in return, but remember, he's going to heal.
Yep, has the Gunblade. Darshan, though, getting ganked on the top side. This is something I've noticed about Mike Young. I watched this series yesterday very closely and preparing for this one, and he is a much more top and mid-focused jungler than P1 has had in the past, right? Meteos hasn't always been mid-focused. Inori, kind of the same thing, was playing more to bot side. Mike Young is more solo lane focused than any of the junglers that they've had.
Which, for Zig, is like a blessing,
Yeah,
because this is
well,
the guy
also
that we
Ryu,
said
too.
is always so low economy. P1 saying, okay, Zig, do what you can. We're going to focus other places.
Yeah.
Finally getting some love here from Mike.
Same thing with Ryu, right? Ryu didn't always get a whole bunch of attention mid, but Mike Young seems to want to favor that lane in the central part of the map. There's a flank, though. That's just a clone.
Yep,
Top
not
side.
concerned about it.
Another flank looking for Dardoch. Cut him off with arrow and special and a wall.
Dardoch should just be dead to rights here. Tries to get himself away. Already popped the flash. CLG members over the wall. Can they do anything about this? Looking to get the stuns onto that Renekton. Darshan makes his way into the fight. Going to be stunned up now. Death over onto Zig via Stixay. Xpecial low. Mike Young low as well. Huhi looking to make the flash. Gets the kill onto Xpecial, but he dies in the process. 2 for 2.
Yeah, the 2 for 2. And hold on, though. Hold on. Arrow?
Will there be more?
I don't think he does it.
Nope.
Yeah, don't do it. Doesn't jump in, doesn't go after him. They're looking for those turrets, though, still. Where's the wave clear? Ryu is mid. Gonna try to push there, but this top turret, I feel like you could still get dove if you're Arrow, so he has to be careful. He has 3 people on this side of the map, and this might be that first turret. Going over to Counterlogic Gaming.
Yep, P1 can't get in position in time to defend it. Darshan will just keep thwapping that away with the pool noodle. And the red team destroys the first turret. You see the message there on your screen, and CLG will now take the gold lead.
TP flank.
That one.
Darshan still has flash, still has teleport.
He's trying to back up in time.
He's gonna get flanked by Twitch, and he's gonna have a TP on the other side.
Sees Arrow going for him. He really wants to try to riposte this stun if he can. Gets himself away and doesn't even need to. Instead, just pop in the escapes and gets to safety.
It's good that he didn't, because he wouldn't have mana to get away with a Q afterwards. So he went out of mana there. If he had riposted, probably would have actually just used all of it. This was a good flank, and I like the way that Mike Young played this. The kick back to try and get them to reach it, and then the Q lands, and then Dardoch goes for the flash and the body slam, but then that's when Mike Young takes the Q and gets hit by the body slam to stop Dardoch from going any extra distance. And Special tries to keep Zig alive. Zig drops there, but then the riposte comes out as Mike Young's trying to do some last bit of damage there to Darshan, who just ends up healing up, and that's the thing. Long skirmishes favor Counterlogic Gaming because they have so much regen on both of their solo laners and even their AD carry.
Break number 1, the target here, secured by Dardoch as Mike Young tries to go for the steel chain to corruption from Stixay. Will not lock him down before he makes his escape. CLG now down in gold again after Phoenix1 responds to the turret in top lane with a turret in top lane of their own. But keep your eyes on Arrow in these fights, because that last fight that we saw up towards the Rift Herald pit, he got to sit back on the ramp, get free firing time as he wanted it.
Up. Special had the ultimate and he's looking to deliver Mike Young possibly to the other side. And Arrow looked like he was trying to go for the bush. They're being pretty cheeky here, but you always have to worry about double teleport from both Darshan and Huhi, who haven't used them yet. And look at that. Exactly. Looking for the Abyssal Void to the other side.
There we go, the play coming in. Stixay forced into the river. Afro Mood jumping back away from that tongue.
Yeah, it's always strange that if you do it to the bottom side of the crossroad, I feel like that's just a bad position for the Abyssal Voyage. You should be going more towards the middle of the lane to focus them one side or the other, but look at this. There's the TP.
Makes the rotation
They need
top
to kill him fast.
try to get Darshan down, but they can't kill him in time. The TP comes through, but is not ultimately completed. Huhi instead canceling that one at the last possible second. Staying mid.
Yeah, it's just cover at that point. Making sure that they don't all in on Darshan. If he didn't TP, Darshan's dead.
Meanwhile, oh, that chain.
Yeah, the cleanse from Ryu to try and get out of it fast enough. And that's enough. Also, the pressure came through, but look at this. They're countering onto Zig.
The same thing that happened to Darshan moments ago happening to Zig now, but
through,
Mike
the
Young
heal
makes his
though.
way into the fight. They managed to go 1 for 1 so far, but Dardoch will fall as well. Mike with a very nice kick.
Man, Mike playing out of his mind in this series so far. He's in the right place at the right time. That game sense. Like, I can't go on about this enough with this guy, where you don't see that in a rookie player who has just come into the LCS. You don't see that type of respect for his opponents while still having an aggressive mindset. He went into Dardoch's jungle last game. He was able to abuse the fact that it was the matchup that it was with Gragas Nidalee. And even in this game, he's in the right place and he's not overextending. And I love that, because too many junglers either play too aggressive or they play too scared. And he's playing right where he needs to. And this right here was great, because Zig turns around, gets the stun off, gets a little bit of the heal, and then the kick through buys some time, and it makes Dardoch have to overcommit there and use the body slam.
Just what the doctor ordered from Mike Young. 3-0-3 on the Lee Sin. Remember, Dardoch's Lee Sin in game number 1 went 3-0-13. Both Lee Sin players just playing incredible this series.
Man, I feel like the Phoenix1 support and jungle positions have kind of been like Goldilocks.
The 3 bears?
Yeah. This one's a little bit too aggressive. This one's a little bit too passive. This one,
wondering
Mike Young.
Where in the world you were going with that?
Right.
I was like, the jungler is porridge? What's going on? I was like, I don't even understand. But now, okay, now that makes sense. But Stixxay found himself caught out now, flashing over where that wall was going to be, making sure he stays alive. But getting that summoner spell, very, very important. That's down for 5 minutes now, which means the next opportunity for Phoenix1 will find that kill.
Exactly. Trying to look for that again. Arrow does have the flash, so like you said, next time, being able to flash forward and get on that low mobility carry. And I like how Phoenix1 have really been stopping the 1-3-1 from happening from Counter Logic Gaming. Zig hasn't given too much in the matchup, and neither has Ryu. So they've held strong while Arrow has been able to excel a little bit on this Twitch and roam around the map. But I may have spoken too soon, but look at that. They're collapsing immediately onto the Fiora. This is a low turret, and he's going to try to abuse Dardoch, push him out. And that rewards them with a turret. And I don't know if there's an answer here, possibly mid lane, but it would be pushed too fast.
2-1 turret lead for Phoenix1 as both top laners blow the ultimates. So Renekton not really fit to team fight right now. Fiora not really concerned about it either. Ravenous Hydra and Black Cleaver done for her. The Black Cleaver completed on the side of Zig as well. Those items very, very effective. You see them pretty much any bruiser worth their salt these days building the Black Cleaver either first or second. Armor shred on top of the health and cooldowns and damage is exactly everything they need in terms of a bundle of stats.
Yeah, exactly. Every little thing that they need. Mid lane turret, though, feels like Counter Logic Gaming really want this. They're going to try to muscle it down here. And Special going to hold as Arrow comes up. We'll see.
Arrow just right on the front line, not even remotely afraid of Aphromoo or Dardoch. Getting in there for a couple of auto attacks worth of damage, then backing off before any counterattack is possible. Darshan bottom side. 1 or 2 more auto attacks will do it. That turret will go down, and we're at the point where Zig can't win these 1v1s. Who he forced to flash almost brought down.
Almost takes him out there, 180 HP. And there's the TP. They're trying to flank mid. Arrow's trying to engage. Has just enough for the ulti.
They want to go for this. Shield comes out from Aphromoo to block some of the damage. Chains of Corruption looking to turn this one around. Mike Young going to be caught out, but saved. Special gobbles him up in time to prevent the death there. Darshan in the back line, stunned up, brought low, almost brought down. Riposte will not save him. And Phoenix1 finds the first kill of the fight. Now Zig on the front line. The wall comes through, blocking Aphromoo and Huhi away from the rest of the team. Dardoch tries to go in, but he goes in alone and just suicides. Now Phoenix1 is in a spot where they can try to go for even more, but Arrow's going to be stunned up. Ryu goes down. Mike Young going to be taken low. Stixxay falls. Aphromoo retreating. Huhi's got full health and could potentially finish off 4 if given the opportunity. He's got Aphro with him, but Phoenix1 is moving as a unit, and they'll escape.
Ryu had aggro there, still had flash. The stun comes out, though. Zig looking for more.
Huhi taken down, taken low. He's gone.
And Phoenix1 are going to turn on the Baron right now. This feels like a very aggressive play, though. They're kind of low. They're in vision. There's no TPs, though. They know that.
Who's going to stop him? All that's here is Aphromoo. He'll throw
and
a present. I think that, no, it's a fireball. It's not a fireball. It's not Christmas prom.
That's a present for some people.
Yeah, some people like fireball presents.
But now that he's actually stopped them and he stopped some backs and bought time, you have to be careful. Could actually go the other way. No teleport for Zig. Gonna be late on reaching the mid lane / that Baron area. But this right here, Arrow.
What a mess of a fight.
Arrow's actually just out, almost out of mana there. He has about like 102 at this point. That's why he hasn't used Contaminate. And he's waiting to have enough for his R, which costs 100. So he backs up here, then he pops R as the stun comes through onto Darshan. And they pick up Darshan with Mike Young taking the Sonic Wave Resonating Strike afterwards. And then this wall was actually quite good because it keeps Aphromoo, who wants to protect, and Huhi, who wants to be a big damage dealer on the side, and he can't reach after Dardoch engages. And Dardoch, when you actually go over Talia E's with a dash, the little rocks on the ground, they instantly pop. It's either duration or it's just that little bit of a dash over them will set them off. And right there, Xpecial saved Arrow very heavily. We almost saw Ryu just died only to turret, and he did afterwards, but then Arrow almost suffered the same fate.
At the start of the fight, Xpecial flashed forward to devour Mike Young as well when he was going to die, which made it so P1 was able to turn the fight around. More big moves coming out of the CLG Kryptonite player. The root hits onto Arrow.
Not a great wall.
Phoenix1 still winning the fight for now. Juggle backwards onto both Afro and Dardoch, but now the Gragas cast is going to knock Phoenix1 forward. Afro moved down, Huhi and Stixay finding a little bit of damage onto Mike Young, but they have to retreat. Huhi very, very low. Darshan working his way up towards this fight ever so slowly. No TP on that Fiora means no way in except hoofing it.
And that TP being down is huge because it means that he has to walk it every single time. And Dardoch stopping the backs, delaying, trying to make him a little bit more staggered.
Just wants to prevent this team from working as a coherent unit as much as possible. Mike Young and Arrow getting back together gives CLG the opportunity to put some wards down in the Baron pit, as you can see by the entire array of them that they've got placed down right now. The one by P1 in that pit quickly cleared out by Dardoch as well.
It's a family, man.
Yeah, a whole family of wards. Hanging out there, having a good time, but if P1 has their way, they're going to clean that out real quick. Zig in the bottom side. No TP available for him either. Both top laners going to have that teleport in about a minute or so. A little bit over that. And I'm really still keeping eyes on Mike Young here. 5-0-5 on that Lee Sin. Guardian Angel up as his third non-boots item, making it so even when he goes in, he's not afraid of dying. He can go down, come back up, then be saved by Xpecial.
Ryu gonna get double chained here by Huhi. Huhi can try to deal at least some damage there to the Talia, who can't actually regen that back up at all. So he'll have a little bit of an advantage in the split push and force Ryu back, whereas Arrow, again, is always looking for these Twitch plays.
Arrow's 4-0-5 on Twitch. He's got Bork, he's got Hurricane. Now he's working on the Infinity Edge.
That's a huge spike when he gets it.
We're getting to the point where Twitch is going to be that team fight terror that if you don't kill him immediately as he comes out of stealth, he just aces your team.
And there isn't really much armor either. You don't have a dedicated tank besides the Gragas, which does have the Runic Echoes this game, so he didn't go for the Bruiser or the Cinderhulk build early. Instead went for the magic damage.
He does have Deadmans and Tabby.
Yeah, he does have those. He does some armor. And I kind of want to go back to the Goldilocks point where Mike Young seems to be the right fit here, and Xpecial as well. See, didn't get the Banshee's Veil off, so not able to follow.
And I like what he did there too. He made sure he threw that clone out to block the Sonic Wave potentially. Even though he still had the Banshee's Veil, you heard the huh from Lee Sin throwing out that Sonic Wave, but it only connected onto the clone.
Exactly. And the clone also has Banshee's Veil too, so.
Just twice as many ways to stop you from doing what you want to do.
Yeah, but speaking about stopping people from doing what they want to do, let's go to the opposite for a second. Phoenix1, their carries, we've been talking about, like, man, Ryu, Arrow, they haven't been looking great. Zig just looks out of sorts. And it's always been these support and jungle parts where they're like, who fits where, who can help who can enable. Because we know, like Freak was saying in his 80 carry tier list, that Arrow is capable of better performances than he has put up. Now he has soul protection of somebody like Xpecial, who's played Braum and Tahm Kench in this series exclusively, and is 100% able to keep Arrow very safe, so Arrow could be more aggressive. And Mike Young is more focused on those solo lanes, so they'll seed the lane phase bottom, have Xpecial play for the mid-late game like Arrow wants to on these champions instead of dominating lane, and then Ryu is also freed up, as well as Zig getting the attention he needs. Because this is a matchup top lane where if you had just left that alone, no jungle attention, nothing like that, the Fiora is just going to crush the Renekton at a certain point. And that's the point that we're hitting right now with Death's Dance coming through. This is where the match gets pretty disgusting. Same thing for Zig. He's looking at almost the same build.
But that's what we talked about, that 30 to 35 minute point where Fiora hits 3 items. That's the worry point when you're up against Fiora, because that's where it starts to become an issue with, wait, I can't hurt her unless I have more than one person here to help me.
Yeah, and Darshan has the most gold in the game at the moment. Also the first person to level 17. And that's huge, because now he's just going to be able to split push. The Death's Dance helps him so much, where you can dive turrets, the double lifesteal items. And it was a little bit of a shift where Fiora had 4 AD ratios on her passive, on her vitals. So when you buy Death's Dance, which is now the highest AD item in the game with 80, you get so much more. But look at that, trying to push him away.
Ryu. 1v1 here. Huhi trying to flash to maybe finish that off. Ryu flashing away. And now the fight will be broken out as the rest of the teams dash in to make sure they can make something happen here. Huhi getting himself taken low, and Zig finds a very clutch kill. Arrow trying to chase down the rest of CLG. Mike Young going to be knocked forward by that explosive cast. One more hit will stun him up through that Winter's Bite. He gets gobbled to safety right before GA would be popped. It's a 1 for 0 so far, but meanwhile, Darshan working on that tier 2 turret bottom side. It's a kill for a turret so far, and CLG
Arrow
trying to stop back and buy time. Arrow's ulti opens up, Afromoo gonna be taken low, gets himself out in time, and the backs are stopped, Zyrene. That is the critical point here. Phoenix1 deciding they're gonna go for Baron instead. Bottom lane under siege. We've seen Phoenix1 make big mistakes around Baron Palm before. CLG will teleport Darshan into this fight just to make sure Phoenix1 can't get that objective.
This is so scary for them. They're so low. He's up in 3 seconds. He has teleport. Counterlodge Gaming are trying to turn the game around right here.
They're just trying to buy the time they need.
There's the TP.
Ryu with the Banshee's Veil. That would need to be popped before Darshan could issue a grand challenge here. Arrow popping the heal. Trying to get these guys away to safety. Darshan gonna be taken low. Pops the riposte and gets the heal field off. Ryu is down. Mike Young gonna be losing the Guardian Angel. Special taken low. Mike's back up alive, but how much longer? Zig taken down. A double kill for Stixay. Arrow's juggling around. Where's he gonna go? Right back to the spawn platform. A shutdown for Dardoch.
And that was huge from CLG. The 2 teleports come up big, where the Fiora and the LeBlanc both get into the back line, and they cut them off. CLG are back in the lead.
The macro game for CLG, manipulating their opponent's positioning, buying time for their mid laner to teleport back into the fight, and the reward is Baron Nashor.
Yep, only Mike Young on the map right now. Hasn't died still this game. The Guardian Angel got popped, but that's it. He's not gonna contest it. It's gonna be too late. CLG in the driver's seat.
On the back foot the whole game, now firmly planting that foot on the ground and saying this is our turn to show you what we can do with momentum.
Oh, the setup for this was just really incredible. From Counterlogic Gaming, they forced P1 onto the Baron, and they tried it. It was kind of a bold move, but then Darshan, with the right move there to go in, picks up Ryu, gets the Guardian Angel before he drops, and then Xpecial just gets picked up. There's not enough huge mobility in this composition left afterwards, and the Braum does so much work. The tag there, after the flash forward with the auto, Afromoo doing work too.
No way out for Arrow there, plus with both his summoner spells down, he's that much less of a threat going forward for the next couple of minutes. CLG now getting themselves yet another Ocean Drake. Means more regeneration, more scary push potential. You take a bad fight, you drop down to 25% HP, give it 30 seconds. You'll be in fighting shape again.
Yeah, and I love what Arrow was trying to go for in the previous fight, where when he first opened up by the Tri-Brush on top, he had not used his ultimate. The Braum put the shield up immediately, reactively to the Twitch, and then he actually waited, they re-engaged, his flash was back up, and that's when they popped the ultimate. So Arrow was holding it for so long, but it really ended up being an over-aggressive play afterwards.
The Baron power play, now the story for CLG. Not just getting the objective, but what can you do with it?
Yeah, when you talk about power plays here, this is going to be disgusting. I don't feel like Zig stands a chance. 2v1, 3v1, maybe.
Darshan getting himself back, trying to escape the wrath of Mike Young. He sees the wall coming in from the Talia, knows he's gonna drop, tries to make it 1-for-1, but just can't do it. Look at the damage into the health bars from both Zig and Mike, though. They had to bring that many people.
Yeah, and that's a huge bummer for Phoenix1 because they don't want to have to do that, and now they're getting picked apart. I was gonna talk about the comps and how they work now. Baron on this composition from CLG, triple lane push. You're 1-3-1 online, able to push out. You can see that bottom inhibitor turret is super low already. And now Counterlogic Gaming own the map for the next minute and a half, and they have triple Ocean. They regen so much.
We talked about the asymmetric team comps earlier, about how you make the other team play your game. Right now, Mike Young gonna be taken very low. Stixay, his Guardian Angel is popped, and that is huge. He's respawning in a bad spot and taken down without bringing down Mike.
Mike was able to just get out by the skin of his teeth there, just barely dodges the cask, and then Ryu with the knockback onto Stixay. You're like, why is he in front of the shield? Why is he so far forward? It was the seismic shove.
Good job from Phoenix1, stopping the CLG aggro machine there, making them wait out the rest of this Baron buff, essentially. Stixay's gonna be alive, but when he is, you only have 15 seconds left on the buff. It's not gonna work out too well. At least for CLG, they will take one inhibitor turret with that Baron.
Oh, Ryu gets pressed on. Mike Young there, though.
But Mike Young,
oh my God,
right there, dominating.
If you want to be a certain jungler, You want to be like Mike. This guy is all over the map. 6-0 and 8 in a game that has been back and forth.
What a performance for a player who's just now joining the LCS.
Yeah.
One of the youngest possible ages you could be and play in the LCS.
And he's on a team that's in 10th place. And he's up against a team that's trying to go for first. Darshan, though, gonna have 2 there.
Can he fight this? It's gonna be rough, popping the grand challenge onto the Gator, but nope.
Yeah, Executioner's calling from Arrow, picks that up. Now the assassinations from him, 7-1 and 6 on this Twitch, ready to rock.
Arrow and Mike together, the force that Phoenix1 needs to try to find their win here. They were in control the whole game. They lost it there when CLG took the fight and got themselves the Baron, but now things seem to be back under their control. 35 seconds till Darshan is up and running. Phoenix1 has been doing a good job of punishing him for his aggressive split-pushing tendencies, when the rest of CLG is not in position to make anything out of the death, out of the mismatched numbers. We talked about what this means for both teams. Phoenix1 really needs to get themselves on the board in terms of the overall standings in the NALCS right now, going into week 4 potentially after this game. While CLG, a team that wants to win Worlds, if that's your aspiration, you're going to have some really tough competition on the way there. You're going to have to play against the likes of SKT, and I'm willing to bet that SKT is going to be a pretty tough opponent if you can't take down the last place team in the North American LCS.
I will say, though, in terms of international competition, Rift Rivals is looking a little bit better for Phoenix1.
It's looking a little bit better for NA as a whole. Phoenix1, of course, one of the 3 representatives from NALCS at Rift Rivals, which will be happening here in a couple of weeks, which is another reason why they want to look good. They want to represent the entire region well. And it plays into that whole confidence thing that we were talking about earlier, the morale boost. You want to feel good and confident about your team going into a competition like that. If you can rack up a couple of wins between now and then, that's going to put you in a much better state to say, hey, look, we can compete with these guys from other regions. We can compete with the EU.
And now we're on the closest and longest game so far of the series. And it's...
as it should be.
It's insane. Game 3 so far, a minute before Elder Dragon is up, a minute and 20 seconds before the Baron, but you have to respect Arrow. You have to respect Xpecial's ability to flank, and Dardoch stopped by a minion.
The minion will stop his body slam. He and Afro move, trying to walk themselves out here. The Talia wall shows up, but not really any chance to do anything with that trigger pull here for Phoenix1. Huhi and Darshan waiting in a control-warded brush just to see if somebody might pass through.
Yep, the split pushers just hanging out there. Darshan.
They deploy the clone, but it doesn't really get to accomplish much of anything. Oh, these two, not even knowing just how close they are to each other. Xpecial right there, in case Huhi was around. He knew he needed to not let Ryu find himself in a spot like that.
Yeah, perfect formation. Banshee's Veil in front, and then you have the person to gobble him up afterwards. And Arrow, not going to face check that either.
Nope. Way too risky. You know Darshan can essentially 3-hit him at this point.
And 6A backs, picks up Last Whisper for himself, spends the gold that was in his inventory, now rushing towards the Elder Dragon, because Elder Dragon on the table now in 5 seconds. 15 on that Baron, whereas the split pusher's going to look for the inhib. They're going to try to do what they did in game 1 and take advantage of Zig.
Zig will not be able to hold against 2 of these guys. Teleports up for all 3 TP users across the map.
Yeah, but now it's interesting because now Phoenix1, 4-man unit, is flanked 2 and 2. They have to engage on one side. They're going for Sticks A.
Going for CLG if they can. Shield up from Afro move. Glacial Fissure going to be used to disengage this one if he can. The stun down on Xpecial. Now the CLG flank is coming in. Dardoch into the middle of the fight. Juggling him around, trying to take him down. Looking to go for him if they can. Ryu is gone. Huhi's able to find 1 kill. Zig is gone. Xpecial is gone. And Phoenix1 is routed. Trying to run themselves away. Mike Young flees over the wall, jumping to the ward, but CLG will continue their chase.
Yeah, there's a gigantic minion wave here. It hasn't turned on him yet. He tries to thin it as he's getting out.
Mike still trying to get out of this one. Dardoch after him with the dead man's plate. The body slam comes in. The barrel is down. The Guardian Angel popped. And Darshan's looking to return a favor from a moment ago. The shutdown for CLG's top laner.
The first death for Mike Young. And now CLG will push. Arrow, the only one left up. They're going to try to get this turret and also try to position themselves so that they can continue to push. 15 seconds on Ryu, 10 on Xpecial here.
Arrow, the only man standing, somehow having to face this down alone. Firing off the auto attacks as he can, but you can't stay exposed for even a moment, or the CLG team will bring you down. Blue turret destroyed. Another Nexus turret going to fall. CLG goes down the rope. They juggle arrow backwards. They take him down. Special still trying to hold this line. CLG wants to find their win. The Nexus falls, and CLG takes the series.
And they put themselves tied for first at the end of week 3.
Exactly what this team needed to find. Another close and valiant effort from Phoenix1 comes up just short. Xpecial now 7-2 against CLG in best of series. Even the magic of that Xpecial Kryptonite was not enough to bring down a Counter Logic Gaming team with their sights set on victory.
But Phoenix1 looked a hell of a lot better than they did previously. They were in that game from start to finish. The final minute there is the one where it flipped. And now Counter Logic Gaming will play Immortals on Friday to see who really got the better of that trade.
That is going to be a phenomenal match then. And looking to the future for CLG, they are competitive to be the top team in the North American LCS. Flip the coin, look at the future for Phoenix1. We do say it looks brighter than before because of both their games this weekend being stronger performances. They looked like they stood a real fighting chance against both opponents who were both at the top of the table. Dignitas is one of those other teams who could also be tied for first at the end of this week.
Exactly.
But Phoenix1 is still now sitting on 0-6. It is a very rough start to their split.
Yeah, but they can be a little more optimistic. They looked a lot better, especially against a team like Counter Logic Gaming that is now tied for first. And I want to talk a little bit about Phoenix1's issues. We've now seen them lose 3 games because they can't handle flanks or split pushing correctly. They've lost to Someday split pushing, they've lost to Seraph split pushing, and they just lost to the split push of Darshan and also Huhi flanking them in the middle of a fight and then having to be completely routed. They try to pull the trigger on something like an objective or a fight when they don't have all the tools to do so, and it gets outplayed and turned around. I feel like Phoenix1, when the moment is really tense, they aren't clutch enough in their call, and they're just pretty much the decisive action that's correct. They make a move, but it's not always the right one.
And that echoes back to what you were expressing earlier, talking about this team feeling like they lack a unified voice of leadership, of cohesion, of everyone being on the same page and working towards that same direction. Those sorts of corrections in their mindset, in their game plan, could be what they need to come out on top in these situations.
Yeah. And you saw Xpecial at the end of the game there, looked a little bit, not completely distraught, but really just kind of bummed out, frustrated by the fact that that match didn't go their way because the game was in their favor. They actually lose while they're up in kills, 19-15. It's just that final fight that they took, and then it's like, it was the call. It was how they handled the situation. It's one of those ones that you want to keep replaying. But I got to say, Dardoch, really the star of that last fight with the engage, got arrow, hit them in. Xpecial tried to outplay, but it was the big turnaround and a lot of CLG just coming together and showing their teamwork.
It was such an explosive moment for both teams, but for more on that CLG win, let's check in with Jad.
Thank you very much, Captain Flowers. And yes, I'm here with Stixay, who just took down Phoenix1 or helped take down Phoenix1 2-1. I have to ask you, though, Phoenix1 coming into this match at 0-5, yourselves at 4-1, were you expecting this type of fight from Phoenix1, and how did it feel playing against this team?
Yeah, definitely not. We didn't think Phoenix1 would be as good as they were today. I think their jungler was actually like really surprising. That Mike Young was like really good, especially since like it's his first week in playing LCS. So it's pretty impressed with him. Yeah, it was pretty surprising for us.
Yeah, and the games were really back and forth as well. Same today and yesterday. You guys had 2-1 victories this week. How do you guys continue to kind of deal with the chaos in these games that have so many kills and deaths? In fact, you guys are the bloodiest team, so to speak, in all of the LCS. How do you guys deal with that chaos in the games?
Well, it's definitely really frustrating for us to, I feel like, we always have a really, really clean game 1, ends up turning kind of clean, then just Fiesta game 2, and then game 3 is always like, we're coming from behind. So I feel like it's the same scenario every single time we play. So it's pretty frustrating for us. I mean, if the league was like best ones, we'd probably be like just an insane team right now, but obviously best 3. So yeah, I don't know. We just got to figure out how to clean up, keep our focus and discipline throughout the whole series and not just the first game.
You mentioned how that's kind of a recurring problem for you guys. What are you doing to try and remedy that and make every game a clean game?
Pretty much, I mean, all we can really do right now is just kind of talk about it. Make sure, we're not like, hey guys, don't be cocky, don't disrespect our opponents, even though we just like smash them game 1. Just, treat them normally and just stay disciplined because they're going to punish us if we don't.
Yeah, and also you're a former LCS champion. I've heard Aframu talking about how you guys kind of have recommitted to that work ethic and style you guys had back when you were champions. Could you compare that 2016 Spring Split champion CLG with the team that you're currently on here in summer?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like this iteration of CLG is like definitely a championship contender, and I didn't really feel that outside of the spring that we won before. So it feels like really nice to play with this team, and feels like everyone knows what to do. Everyone learns just like insanely fast, and yeah, all my teammates are just really good. So.
All right, well, thank you very much, Stixxay. Congratulations on the 2-0 week, and we're going to send it over to the analyst desk to finish up that game.
Thank you very much, Jat. Some confidence out of Stixxay, at least in terms of their prospects as they make their way towards the postseason here in summer. And a 5-1 record through the end of Week 3 is a good start in terms of making their way to the playoffs.
And it doesn't come easy. It seems to be kind of the story for
No.
CLG, even against teams that they should hypothetically be smashing as, you know, the hypothetical best team in the league.
Right,
you should
right.
beat these teams that are lower down the standings. But to be fair, a lot of the times, it does feel like the teams are putting up good fights against them. This wasn't like, you know, CLG made a ton of mistakes. P1 actually fought them all over the map.
Absolutely. And Stixxay there, I mean, very self-aware of that fact, right? That he's saying, yeah, it is frustrating for our team right now, who is used to, in most situations, being able to perform cleanly. And the fact that that isn't happening right now can be frustrating, and they're still working through that. You know, with all that said, let's look at this third game and how it did eventually fall in the way of CLG, but for the fact that it really was back and forth. I mean, we probably at different times saw 7 different fights where we're like, oh, that could end, you know, that could be the tipping point. And then it would go back the other way.
Yeah,
eventually.
never happened quite like that, where, you know, there's a bunch of skirmishes mid, Darshan starts 2-0, you're like, okay, this is really bad.
Right.
There's this split push 1-3-1 comp with a LeBlanc. How is P1 going to match that? And then they actually did fine. They found a lot of pickoffs. Arrow starts getting fed, and they're like, oh my god, there's this huge Twitch now at like 5-0. He can probably carry team fights, and it was just this really scrappy game where different parts of the map were strong at different points.
Yeah, I think that's a really huge point, right? You have all of the kills in gold onto both the jungler and the ADC for Phoenix1, whereas on the other side, you, of course, have the split push presence of both Darshan and Huhi on that LeBlanc to kind of spread the map out. And then that's where eventually we'll get to Zyrene's point around Phoenix1 and their late game calling right now. It is decisive in that they will make a decision, they will go for a play, but it's not always the right one. And at that stage of the game, when you're 50 minutes in, if you do make the wrong call, it spells disaster in the end of the game for your team.
Especially when faced up against CLG. You know, we talk about 2016 roster, you know, winning Spring Split. That was almost the exact same thing, only Smithy was different. So obviously this team has that kind of long-term experience of knowing what they can do in situations. You saw them constantly looking for different angles where they were bringing the LeBlanc down to the split-pushing Fiora, trying to find a way to open the map up.
Let's get into some clips. The first one comes 33 minutes into the game. CLG's going to collapse on a P1 up here, getting a 4-for-1 plus the Baron.
And this starts off the back of P1 actually picking Huhi, and then they think they're confident enough to start off this Baron. Not quite as much damage as they thought they were going to have, at around 3,000 health right when the rest of CLG starts collapsing. And then this is a little bit of a dicey situation where Darshan just wraps around, playing it very, you know, risky here, where if he goes in early, he might get killed. Now he's running into a turret as they kind of make this play, but it buys enough time for Huhi to respawn, teleport back in. The two of them go in together. A nice riposte there. Mike Young actually blows his Dragon's Rage on that during that time, so no kick in. Mike Young goes down, and because they're so low, it's too easy for the rest of CLG to clean up after Darshan doesn't get blown up right away.
Yeah, a nice cleanup here gives them the advantage, of course, with these deaths. Now CLG has permission to go get the Baron, which was Phoenix1's original objective. But now I want to fast forward to that team fight that Zyrene's talking about, the one that ends the game. 42 minutes in, 4-for-0 in favor of CLG, off of the beautiful collapse by both Huhi and Darshan.
The situation is that when Xpecial ults in by himself, he probably needs someone with him to have some kind of follow-up CC, because Tahm Kench really does not bring much himself. So even though they wanted to open up on Stixxay while both Darshan and Huhi were split down the bot side of the map, there's no actual setup. Their team comp not great for that in general. There's not a ton of CC if it's not coming in from an insect play. And after that kind of initial attempt gets, you know, thwarted by the Braum, great pick to deal with that kind of stuff, it's the flank is completely exposed. And that's what, you know, you heard Zyrene hitting on, was the fact that once they make an initial play that doesn't work out, they do struggle to kind of refocus and collapse back onto their main backline.
And Braum and Aframu kind of playing into that exact situation very beautifully. Receiving player of the game here this time around for the Braum performance. We saw so often that ability to save a carry and then roll back through on the re-engage, in a sense, off of maybe a Stixay ult, for example, definitely winning them multiple fights there in the late game.
Braum being a little bit more high skill cap of a champion than I think he sometimes is given credit for, where it's like, okay, you press Q, your team autos them, stun, great. You ult their engage to try and interrupt it, great. But timing your E really well, getting your Ws down at the right time, being able to know that when you need to W out of a fight or when you can W forward, those kinds of things I think sometimes get a little lost in the Braum play, because if you just look at that, it's like, oh, they tried to engage on Stixay and he ulted them off.
Right. Exactly. But again, it's all about the presence of mind to know where you need to be to be in position for that leap. Again, you know, knowing which priority target the other team might focus and how you need to respond in kind. Lastly, I want to talk about Mike Young. We spoke about him a little bit yesterday in his day one performance. We gave him a report card. Here he is on day two. Again, remember, Dardoch had in an interview yesterday, called him out for being a bit of a one trick off of just really looking at his solo queue accounts. Well, here in week one, he's played at least 4 unique champions. We got the Lys and the Nidalee, the Elise and the Kazakhs. You can see win rates and KDAs, of course. In a losing weekend, the win rate's not going to look fantastic, but he's put up some pretty big numbers.
I gave him a C yesterday, probably underrated him a little bit. Looked really good today on the Nidalee game, being able to pick up a kill as Lee Sin. Even in this loss, had about a 14 KDA or something at the end. The Kazakhs game started out really well as well before it kind of all went sour. So I think you got to say he had a great weekend, and most of their issues came in that mid to late game.
33% win percentage on the Lee Sin with a 5.29 KDA is actually pretty crazy. I mean, of course, again, small sample size, but this is all to say that he is a youngster here in the league, performing very well in his first weekend. And in terms of Phoenix1 still looking for their first series win, I think it gives that audience something, those fans something to look forward to. There is a lot of growth potential within this team, and that's where I want to transition the final talking point here into Xpecial and how he can aid Mike Young into becoming a really talented and gifted NALCS jungler.
I think if you look at this roster with Shady still in, it's a little bit of a disaster just because there's almost no leadership. Zig, still relatively young despite being in the scene a really, really long time. Probably doesn't quite have those leadership properties quite yet. Ryu and Arrow being Korean, and though Ryu has been in this, the European scene for a really long time, is he really going to be able to connect and lead some of the younger guys who might not have, really be on the same page with him, whereas Xpecial's been in the scene in North America for a super long time and can help them figure out what they should be doing at different points in the game. I think his contribution to the team, though it didn't get them the win here, you get to see it on display in this series, making some important calls, especially in that game 2, where they used the Tahm Kench to collapse onto the Baron.
It's a tough 0-2 week for Phoenix1, but I think there is space to be optimistic about their future. We've got more league action coming your way in just a few minutes. Team Dignitas will face off against Echo Fox. We'll be right back.